Hi all, today we're going to talk about equations. So there are different ways to use equations, and so far we've just been talking about expressions. Expressions don't have an equal sign in them. Equations do have an equal sign in them. So they can be used just like expressions to show calculations. However, we add this little equal sign to make it an equation. And all the equal sign means is equals means that the stuff on the left side over here is the same as the stuff on the right side over here. So when we write an equation, that equal sign just means that we can balance that equation. And so we can trade sides if we want to. So in this case, we can write the equation as 3 plus 2 equals 5. Or we can write the equation as 5 equals 3 plus 2. Because that equal sign means that both sides are the same. Okay, so that's really important, especially when we get into solving equations. So we can show calculations using equations. We can also show what's called an identity. And all an identity means is we're going to use variables instead of numbers. And we can put any number in for the variable, and the equation will still be true. So for example, here I have x times y equals y times x. So if I say x equals 2 and y equals 5, then I can say 2 times 5 equals 5 times 2. I can change that. Let's say I decide that x is now equal to 4. And I still get an equation. So that's what's called an identity. So that's another use of equations. I can also use equations to relate different quantities to each other, and especially quantities that are changing. So here I have what we will come to know as a linear equation. So these, again, just like our identity, I can put different values in for x and y. And as long as the equation is true, then I can relate those quantities to each other. So I can see how y changes as x changes in this case, okay? So for example, if I put a 2 in for x, I can see what I get out for y in this case. Another way to relate quantities is to use formulas. And we're going to use a lot of formulas in this class. So here's a formula for area of a rectangle. Area is equal to length times width. And instead of writing out the words, area is equal to, right? Instead, we just use variables and we create a formula. So A is equal to area, and L is length, and W is width, and that's how we write our equation for the area of a rectangle. So the last way that we use equations is to solve problems. And we're going to talk a lot more about this in another video, but here we have an equation and we want to know what value of x makes that equation true. And that's going to be a different video. So I won't go into that too much, but this is one of the primary ways that we're going to be using equations in this class. And so I have an example here of a problem. Tanya had some money. After she spent $5, She gave half of the remaining money to her mother. At that point, Tanya had $18 left. How much money did Tanya have at first? So this is a good example of a problem where we want to write an equation. And so we translate the words into symbols, math symbols. So after Tanya spent $5, so here's the original value that Tanya had, and we represent that with a T. We could use an X, a P, a Q, or whatever. But she spent $5, so we're subtracting $5. Then she gave half the money to her mom, and she had $18 left. So we're basically, I call this translation. We're translating from English words into math symbols, and that's another way to use equations.